All right. Okay. Well, thanks again for having me. I'm going to ask everybody to mute so that if any noise happens, you won't be heard. And I'm going to share my screen so that you can see my slides. I prepared some slides. Where's PowerPoint?
I'm going to mute everybody. I hope I don't mute you. So let's see what happens. We'll make sure I'll let you know. I did mute you.
Okay, I just unmuted myself.
Perfect.
Can you hear me again?
Yeah, we
Okay.
can hear you and we can see your screen too.
All right, fantastic. Okay, great. Well, so just a little about me. I'm Hope Bohanec. I have been vegan for 35 years, and I actually went plant-based for environmental reasons back that long ago. We knew this information. A lot of the information that I'm going to be sharing with you. I worked for Greenpeace. I did um tree sitting and volunteering with Earth First way back in my radical crazy youth of the 90s, and that led me to learning a lot about the farmed animals and the impact on them, and that really drew me in to doing this work. I've written two books, actually. They're right over here. The Ultimate Betrayal I wrote 10 years ago, and it is about humane washing and greenwashing. And greenwashing, of course, what we're going to focus on tonight. And then the other book, The Humane Hoax. The subtitle's behind me, so I'm not going to read the subtitle. But it's an anthology, 10 years later, kind of a follow-up anthology with 18 contributing authors on the subject of humane washing and greenwashing. So I know that this is a health group, so we're going to be kind of exploring another reason to do this wonderful diet of plant-based and vegan. And we're seeing the direct results of climate change playing out in LA right now with the horrible fires down there that are directly related and connected to climate change. So it's a huge, important thing to look at our diet and how it impacts the planet. And for the first time ever, there was a poll that found that the majority of people in the US feel that they are directly affected by climate change. So that just changed to the majority of people feeling that they are directly affected. So, it is now. It is not some future time. It is happening now, and we need to make changes. And just getting back to how it is connected to health, the what happens to the planet, what's happening to the environment affects us directly. I mean, we are part of this planet. What happens to the air pollution, water quality, all of that directly affects our health and how well we can, fight disease and our complete wellness. So it's very connected. Also, mental health. There's now what psychologists are calling climate anxiety, where people are having mental health crises over the state of our planet and their concern for it. And there's interestingly two kind of different areas that people can be affected by this and how they can be affected by this. One is the first part of climate anxiety is kind of apocalyptic fears, the fear of death and destruction and systems breaking down. So, kind of an existential dread, right? And then the second are complex feelings around like loss and grief and guilt. Guilt because we're causing it, we're part of it, right? Not intentionally, but just as our lives have evolved. So there's so many connections and so much, important stuff going on around this and diet. So let's get into it. So I want to start with the big picture of animal agriculture's impact on the environment, and then we'll get more into the greenwashing and the labels. But just the overall bigger picture, and these stats all come from the Environmental Protection Agency. So this is all very, very researched and well known stuff and the studies. I mean, it, like I said, it goes back to the 90s. It's the accumulative science is just overwhelming that animal agriculture's impact on the environment is huge in numerous ways. We've got climate change, and then the massive energy and fossil fuel consumption that goes into animal agriculture. And how that really works is that, when you compare to plant farming, animal farming just has a lot of components that create greenhouse gases. Carbon dioxide is not the only greenhouse gas. There is nitrous oxide, methane. These are two prominent greenhouse gases that are mostly coming from animal agriculture. Nitrous oxide is in the US one of the top reasons that nitrous oxide is being expelled is through animal agriculture, as well as methane. And that's coming directly from the animals, from their gases and burping. So lots of climate change gases coming from animal agriculture. It's also deforestation. We are destroying the Amazon for livestock grazing to grow the corn and soy and grains that we feed to the animals. In the US, we've destroyed so much of our forest land. Our prairies have just been decimated because of livestock grazing. And I'll say farmed animal grazing. I don't like to use the term livestock. I feel it really commodifies the animals and desensitizes us to the fact that these are animals. So I try not to use livestock, even though, it's used a lot in the environmental studies and stuff. So. Loss of habitat, biodiversity, species. Again, this is because of the massive amount of land use, not only to graze the animals, but also to grow the feed, to feed the animals. We use 10 times or more land to feed and raise animals, or for animal products, for meat, dairy, and eggs, than for plant foods. Water waste. There's so much water wasted in the process of raising farmed animals. We've got, not only the water that's going directly to the animals, being drunk by the animals, but also all the water that's used on those crops, the corn and soy that's going to the animals and not going to people. Also, the facilities like the dairy facilities, the slaughterhouse, they have to wash down all that equipment every day, all day long. And it is a huge water just waste. They use fresh water, just gallons and gallons and billions of gallons of water in those industries. Water and air pollution as well. I'm going to talk a little about that later, the water pollution part, and topsoil erosion, which is, topsoil is a very precious resource that we need to have nutrient-rich food. So really a lot of impact that animal agriculture has. So, well, what can we do about this? What can we do? We know that this is a big issue. Well, the industry has a solution for you. They're telling you what you can do. They're saying that you can buy organic milk and free range eggs and local meat, right? So this is a concern, and we didn't have these labels 10 years ago, 15 years ago. When I was going vegan originally, well, these labels didn't exist. This is something new, and it's because we have now, known, we're getting to know more. Journalists, activists are bringing out this information that this is very impactful, animal agriculture on the environment. So the industry is trying to, put a spin on it, trying to tell us that they're doing things better. But let's look deeper into that. So I'm going to start with organic. And organic is actually one of the only labels that I'm going to be talking about that does have some oversight and has a lot actually of oversight and regulation and on-site inspection of the farms. None of the others have any kind of on-site inspection of the farms. Most of the other labels that I'm going to be talking about are woefully regulated. They're just not. But organic is. However, even when we're talking about organic, with animal products, okay, with animal products, the only difference from conventional to organic is that the feed and the grain that's fed to the animals is organic and the animals are drug-free. And both those things are important. And that is, that's good. It's a good step. However, when we look at all those other impacts that I had in the earlier slide, still there is a heavy impact with even organic dairy, even organic eggs, right? And I'll give an example with this next chart. Okay, so we have three diets here. We've got the vegan diet, vegetarian diet, and the diet down at the bottom, which includes dairy and eggs, the SAD diet, the standard American diet that most everyone is eating. There's two colors. You see a light green line that's going across and then a darker green line. The light green line is organic farming. The darker green line is conventional farming. And of course, how far it goes across to the right is the impact, the climate impact, right? So let's start down at the bottom. That dark green line at the bottom where most everybody's eating, the non-organic standard American diet, right? Let's say that someone is eating this diet and they say, I really want to do better. I really want to eat more ecologically, eat more green. I'm going to eat all organic. I'm going to eat organic dairy and organic milk and meat. Okay, you're now going to go up to that little light, the longer light green line at the bottom, right? And you've reduced your impact by 8%. Okay, that's something. You've made some impact. However, let's say that same person says, I want to eat more green, I want to eat more ecological, I'm going to go vegan. And now we're not even talking about organic. I'm just going to eat plant-based. Ah, okay. So then you drop down to that top dark green line and you've reduced your impact by 87%. Now we're talking. That is a reduction, right? And not even organic, just going vegan. You've reduced your impact by 87%. You can go all the way to organic, vegan, and at that top little light green line, you've reduced your impact by 94%. So it's really the animal agriculture, the animal farming that is so impactful on the environment. And we see it again and again with other labels, and I'll show you with other ones like local. Local is one of those that is so frustrating to me because so many people think that it means something and it means very little, unfortunately. And it's kind of, there's no regulation around it. Again, no regulation, no government oversight, no, the USDA, the FDA, they don't have a definition really for local. I think that's changing. I think they're trying to get into it a little more. But right now there is no definition, and it could be, the store could say, oh, it's 50 miles, oh, it's 250 miles, whatever. But when you're looking at a food's carbon footprint and how much, impact that food has, whether it be animal product or plant food, they've calculated, and they calculate that transportation or how local the food is only about 11% of the equation. The production phase is 83%. And the production phase is where the impact is. And guess what? Animal agriculture is heavy on production. That is where so much of the energy goes with animal products. So when they do these life cycle assessments and they calculate local animal products, they have, like, again and again, a higher impact than non-local plant foods. And I'll give an example. So let's say you're at the store and you pick up a tomato And you see this tomato and, you think, oh, so it's an organic tomato. That's good. Oh, no, it's from Mexico. Wow. That had to go over a lot of borders. That came from really far away. That's too much. It's not local. I'm going to go with this local organic dairy product, thinking that it is better. But no, no. If you do the life cycle assessments on both these products, the plant product will have a lower impact. Uh, Dairy and eggs and meat have so much more in the production phase and so much more energy and resources. And I'll explain animal farming, animal foods, they're just inefficient, right? They're just a waste of resources. There is the lighting and the heating and the mechanized processes of milking and refrigeration and the slaughtering process. So much more energy, fossil fuels goes into getting an animal product to market as compared to plant foods. Plant foods have so much less resource intensiveness. Um, so, there was this study in the Journal of Environmental Science Technology. It found that switching just 2 meals a week from meat and dairy to a vegetable-based diet achieves more greenhouse gas reduction than buying all locally sourced food. Just 2 meals a week. Imagine if you go all plant-based. I mean, the reduction is incredible. So, it's this the local uh, it means so little, but really it's the plant-based that is so impactful. I mean, it's always good to eat local. It's all if again, it could be good to eat local in different ways too. Having, your local economy be stronger, things like that, supporting your local produce, but there's other reasons. I'm focusing in on the environmental impact, right? Okay. So free range, this is a label that some people feel is more environmental as well as pasture raised. And now we're talking around like eggs mostly. These labels are on. So I, I use this picture kind of just to show that this could be considered free range, believe it or not. This is a typical cage-free operation for eggs. And the way they make it free range is by opening a door to maybe, a little 5 foot by 5 foot concrete patio or mud area that is so unappealing, no bird even wants to go out there, and they can call that free range. I have seen this. I've seen this over and over. I went to one place that had a barn like this where they opened the door. I mean, where it opened, right? There was an area that was just mud. It was just a mud puddle. And it was so small that maybe like 30 birds could fit out there when it was, there were thousands of birds crammed into this building. It's just so they can slap free range on the label. And there's no on-site inspection of the farm. They just send in, a form to, it's very revolving door. Everybody gets awarded whatever label they want. No one gets rejected. It means so little. But as you can see, this would not be a good natural place for a chicken to be. They're crammed in here, just on top of each other, living in their own excrement. It's just a horrible place to be. So really, and when we're talking about the environmental impact, it's apples. There's no difference, right? Really, there's nothing that makes it more environmental. Uh, but when there is a transition to a truly somewhat free range system, and there are pork producers that are doing this with pigs, where pigs have, a space, an outdoor space. And there's so many issues too with putting animals out into pasture. New issues that arise. People think that, oh well, they're out in the pasture, it's going to be better for them. But there's all kinds of new issues that can happen. And now I'm getting into, the ethics and the animal's experience. But getting back to And I won't get into the details of that. If you're interested, I could maybe talk about it later. But trying to stay focused on the environment. It's hard for me when there's so many animals involved. I feel for them. I feel like I have to speak for them, at least a little. But focusing in on the environmental. So when there is a truly a transition to some kind of pasture system, right? They'll be using the same number of animals, sometimes a smaller number of animals for a much larger area of land, right? So if you look at this warehouse of animals, um, probably a quarter acre of land this farmer is using, maybe half an acre at the most. If he wanted to give even half of these chickens maybe 2 square feet more space, like a little bit more space. They had some semblance of a natural life outdoors. He would need acres and acres and acres more land, right? It just can't be done. Free ranging, free range farming and free ranging of animals cannot be scaled up. We would need closer to 5 planet Earths if we wanted to free range all of these animals and to expand into more green spaces. We would need to destroy wetlands and forests and prairies and other wild spaces to accommodate these local free range animals. Free ranging actually increases the damage to biodiversity, as these open spaces are going to need to be decimated for animal farming. So, it's really not sustainable. It is not the answer. Free range farming can only really be a specialty market for a few elite buyers, right? It cannot be scaled up to feed the 8 billion people on this planet. You just can't do it. Okay, so grass fed. This is another one that was just shocking when I was looking into this and looking at the science in this. Grass-fed meat can produce 50 to 60% more greenhouse gases than conventional beef. What? What? Why do people buy this label? Why are they going and paying more for this label? It's because they think it's more environmental, but it is not. We're seeing studies now out of Oxford and Harvard and Washington State University and many, many more, and they're comparing conventional meat with feedlot, right? Cattle, cows with grass-fed cows. And again, they found that the grass-fed products required more land, more water, more fossil fuels, and produced more greenhouse gases. This is one of those situations where the label isn't just neutral and kind of greenwashing and trying to hide, whatever was happening before and just packaging it differently. This is one where it's even worse when they actually actually grass feed the animals. It can be worse. That it takes 18 to 24 months longer for the cows to get up to market weight to be able to be slaughtered. So they're living longer. They're living longer lives, burping more methane, drinking more water, right? Causing more pollution. So this one was really shocking. Okay, so this is the point where someone who kind of, is a proponent of these labels would say, well, hang on, hang on, hang on. You can't just throw the cows out in the field and think that everything's going to be okay. There are methods, right? There are ways that you need to farm, like regenerative grazing. Okay, so you're probably going to hear a lot about regenerative grazing. This is the new buzzword in the, environmental, the meat eaters that want to continue, the environmentalists that want to continue eating meat, right? They're going to get really into the regenerative grazing. And we're also going to see it in the Farm Bill. The Farm Bill is coming up, and there is so much money, subsidies that's going to be going to this type of animal farming. It's just, it's very, very frustrating. But just to kind of explain what it is, I use this image so you can see. So around the red area, the larger area, usually a rancher would have his animals out in this field, right? And they have numerous animals out in this field. They graze, they destroy all the topsoil. You cut the trees so they have their space, all of that. So with regenerative grazing, what they do is they'll take usually a much smaller number of animals, put them in one of these little triangles. They graze that down for a few months, and then they'll drop the fence, move them to the next space, put the fence back up, and they graze the next area so that that one area regenerates, right? Uh, so it sounds great, sounds like something that would work. However, this is nothing new. This is a management system that had a lot of trial and error. They've been trying this for decades. There's other name. The names have changed over the years for it. It used to be called holistic, or sometimes was called holistic management, rotational grazing, things like that. They've really settled on regenerative grazing now. But unfortunately, again, we've got this smaller use of animals, lots more space, lots more land to have to be used for smaller amounts of animals. So very difficult to scale up. Wildlife disruption from the excessive fencing. So that's an issue. And there's been peer-reviewed science over and over with this. And unfortunately, that just really, the science shows that this is not a management approach that is better than conventional. It's just not there. The science, it doesn't hold water. People want to believe it's true. People want their beef burger, but it doesn't hold water scientifically. I made this meme. Regenerative grazing is the equivalent of clean coal. We know that it's grazing that has pretty much destroyed the land in the US, why we have such a problem with topsoil nutrients, why we have so few trees left and forest left and forest land. It's the grazing. So what's their solution? More grazing, bigger areas of grazing. It's like, no, 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 no. And so I'll give a plug for my podcast here because I don't really do the science justice. These guys are really, really into it and have amazing ways of explaining it. I have Nicholas Carter is actually in one of the authors in my book, in the greenwashing section of my book, The Humane Hoax. But my Hope for the Animals podcast has these two and also other episodes that really dig into this. So if you're interested in the science behind it and hearing more about regenerative grazing and everything that I'm talking about, these are two wonderful podcasts, and there's some others as well. If you go to my website, Hope for the Animals podcast.org. There's a button at the top, episodes, and there's a drop-down menu, and I've categorized the episodes into different categories. Not every one of them, but when there's like a subject that's very specific, I've categorized them. And there's one that's environment, and you can click on environment, and I have all the ones categorized there as including these two. All right, so moving on. I did want to talk about chicken and eggs, chicken flesh and eggs, because when when you're a plant-based person or a vegan person that cares about these things and is very, like I am, very conscious of the environmental impact part, when you hear about it in media and in, journalists or in movies or whatever, first of all, you used to never hear anything about food. Luckily, that is changing. You are hearing more people acknowledging that food is connected, acknowledging that animal agriculture is impactful, but what you often hear is beef. Beef's bad, beef's the worst, just don't eat beef. Switch to chicken and you lower your impact, right? This is very frustrating. And as I say in the slide, comparing beef and dairy to chicken meat and eggs is like comparing rotten apples and oranges. The impact is heavy with chicken flesh and eggs as well. So if you're just looking at climate change, yeah, beef is the worst. Absolutely, it's true. That's the science. Beef is the worst. Chicken, eggs, somewhere right in here. It's not, it's not great, but it's not as bad, right? I mean, yeah, it's not as bad, but it's still really high. Now, if you compare these two to any plant foods, right down here, so it's like compared to what, right? When you can start comparing to plant foods, then you're down here with the emissions. Plant foods always have a lower emission to any animal product. But then if you look at something like water pollution, okay, water pollution is actually higher than beef. Water wasting is on with chicken and eggs is higher than beef. Okay, so chicken and eggs have huge impacts on different environmental issues, and there's a lot more going on than just climate change. And I'll give some details. So in these barns, these windowless warehouses where they house these chickens, and this is for the broiler chickens that are raised for their flesh, also for the breeder chickens that are breeders for the egg industry, and now getting more and more the cage-free operations. They're all in these buildings that are called floor systems when they just have, thousands of chickens on the floor. And they use this poultry litter, what's called poultry litter, and it's kind of like sawdust and other materials. And that stuff just gets gross. It gets really full of like the concentrated feces, heavy metals, chemicals, bacterias, parasites. They give these animals so many yucky things. There's also pathogens, viruses, all the animals that don't make it to slaughter. There's a lot of animals that die from disease or injury. So there's dead carcasses. And all of this gets, as you can see, kind of bulldozed out into the ground, outside the barn. It goes into the groundwater, and that goes out to our waterways. And what happens is it has high levels of like nitrogen and phosphorus and other minerals and nutrients. And what that does is it really creates these things called algae blooms, where the algae just goes crazy and it depletes the water of oxygen. It's called eutrophication. And the eutrophication happens where the oxygen gets depleted and aquatic life can't live. The fish can't live without oxygen in the water. So this is happening, all along the Mississippi River, going down to the Gulf of Mexico. There's these things called dead zones outside the mouths of rivers all over the world. The Gulf of Mexico is just one of them. But these dead zones are where aquatic life cannot live and the oxygen has been depleted from the water. And what's upstream of all of these dead zones? A lot of chicken farming. Chicken farming is a huge, huge impact and cause of these dead zones and eutrophication in the water. So chicken meat, chicken eggs, this is not the better environmental thing to eat besides beef. Super impactful. Okay. So what can we do about all this? What are some solutions? Well, one, a nature-based solution to climate change is to regrow and rewild our green spaces, planting trees, bushes, plant life. That is what is going to, suck the greenhouse gases out of the atmosphere, what brings more oxygen into the atmosphere. These green spaces are critical to our life on planet Earth. And, it's really the easiest, cheapest, wonderful solution. But how would we get the space, the land? Where would we get the land to be able to regrow and rewild? Well, guess what? If we ate plant-based, we would free up so much land. It takes 10 times the amount of land to eat animal products. Not only for the livestock, like I was saying in the beginning, the cattle and the cows and other animals out in the field, but also to grow those plants that we're feeding them, the soy and the corn and all the grains that we're feeding them. So we could free up so much land by eating plant-based. We'd use so much less land. And also, interestingly, if you avoid meat for a year, you can save 3,500 trees. That's how many trees could be replanted. So, we have the solutions. We have the ability to do this. And, I'll just say with this week being very prevalent with the governmental situation that we have, we can't rely on government to help us out of the climate crisis that we're in. It's got to be a grassroots effort. It's got to be on a personal level. And eating plant-based is one of the most impactful things that you can do on a personal level to reduce your climate impact. And we've all got to do this. It is getting to a critical point. And we are empowered. I mean, that's what's so wonderful about this, I feel, is that it is very empowering. It's like, yeah, there's something we can do. You learned all about, that there's things we can do to empower ourselves to be more healthy, to regain our health and our strength. This is how we can regain the health and the strength of the planet, is by eating plant-based as well. So just some information while I wrap up here. If you want more information about this, I have a website called The Humane Hoax, and it talks about the ethical part of all those labels, as the certified humane and things like that, if you're interested in the ethical part, and then a lot more on the greenwashing as well. I think this next one's, yes, another plug for my podcast, Hope for the Animals podcast. If you're interested in learning more and hearing more from me. And I go into a lot of different topics too. So if the first one that comes up just maybe isn't your cup of tea, I get into the spiritual aspects. I get into social justice. There's all kinds of different things. So maybe scroll to one that is something that might be of interest to you. Now, I do not do health and nutrition. So that you're going to have to get from Charles and Scott and the lifestyle medicines, live lifestyle medicine. But other aspects of living vegan, as far as the animals and ethics and environment, is what I get into. So eating vegan is eating planet-based. And one last thing that I'm excited about that I want to announce, and that is the Eugene Vegan Fest. You might have seen it on the emails that have been going out. Thank you to Scott and Charles and their team for putting that information in the the emails that are going out to the list. Eugene Vegan Fest coming up on May 4th. Very excited about it at the Lanes Event Center, the fairgrounds. And, we're going to have a vendor hall full of amazing food and interesting nonprofits and animal rescues and all kinds of information. And then there's going to be a wonderful food court that's going to have 100% plant-based options out in the food court. And then we're going to have 2 speaker rooms with presentations going all day long. And one of those rooms is going to be hosted by Live Lifestyle Medicine and Eugene plant-based providers. So it will be all nutrition and health information. And then that's the vitality room. And then we'll have the impact room that's going to be about the ethics and the animals and the environmental impact. So lots to do, lots to see. We'll have music and we'll have massage and we'll have all kinds of fun stuff. So I hope you all come. We are looking for vendors and sponsors as well as volunteers. So if you're interested in any of that and getting involved and just hearing more about it, let me know. Email me. Maybe we could put my email in the chat. I'll put my email in the chat when I exit out of here. And that's it.
Well, thank you, Hope, for that. We really appreciate it. And we are up to 30 people now in the room.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's a good session, and we want to open it up for questions from the group. I'm sure there's probably going to be someone who has a question or two.
I'll just say I've been vegan 35 years and I could talk about health too. I mean, that's, it's not my expertise, but I certainly have gone through a lot of different aspects of the vegan diet as far as the health part of it. So I can kind of talk to that as well a little bit.
Yeah, if you want to do that, that would be fine now, or if there's anybody who has a burning question that they want to get resolved first, let's give the gallery a chance to raise their hand or so I can see it or unmute themselves and speak. Laura.
Yeah, two questions. I was curious about that 50 to 60% more gas emissions from grass-fed versus conventional. And is that like per pound of beef? I'm just trying to get like per what? How's that determined?
Yeah, I don't have specific stats here, but I certainly do in my book. So there's more information in the book as far as specifics, the studies, but there's numerous studies now. Like I said, there's a study out of Oxford, out of Harvard, Washington State University. I know there's more, and they are comparing. They're comparing, yeah, pound for pound, or whatever it is. It's a equal comparison of feedlot cow beef and grass-fed beef. And they look at numerous aspects and factors, as to what the impact is. Kind of like those lifestyle assessments that I was talking about, or not lifestyle, lifetime. What? Lost it, what they were called, but the life cycle, that's the word, life cycle assessments, where they calculate with life cycle assessments, like kind of, birth of the animal to the slaughterhouse, or growing the plants to market, all the impacts, and what goes into those products and the greenhouse gas emissions. The grass-fed beef one that I was talking about was specific to greenhouse gas emissions. What they weren't calculating, I think other things were involved, and there is the water use as well was higher. So they were calculating other things as well. But yeah, it's kind of pound for pound. And these, it's so amazing how the industry is able to cover all this up because they've got the marketing, they can say what they want to say, and nobody's listening to these studies, and these scientists don't have a marketing team or money to get this information out, you've got to go digging for it.
Okay, thank you. And I appreciate I'm feeling encouraged to be more plant-based. So thank you for your presentation. My second question is probably more for Scott or Charlie. Um, so I recently saw something like where you get vitamin K from, and grass-fed beef was one. It was, I think, the only one that appealed to me. And so are there plant-based sources of vitamin K?
Yeah, so vitamin K is in plants, all plants, and then your microbiome, actually your body converts it from the K1 to the K2. Dr. Greger has good videos on vitamin K, and yeah, so you get all you need from plants.
Okay, thank you.
Edward, and then Marcia.
Um, I'm wondering if you have a better way to look at things other than just like willful ignorance. Because like I see all that stuff happening, I know it's happening, but I want to look away. But I feel terrible for doing that as well.
I mean, I would say, to just do what you can. Don't get overwhelmed. We shouldn't be so overwhelmed with it that we're not able to take action. I mean, that's what happens, is kind of like you get like the climate anxiety, it's just like you have to turn off from it. You just don't, it's like, and I've actually been this way with with the situation that's happening right now with the changeover of the government, the inauguration. It's a lot. It's a lot. So I have to very much limit how much information I take in. I have to be in a good mindset for when I take that information in. It can be tough. I feel very blessed to be very like deeply interested in this stuff, so I'm able to kind of take a lot of it in. But I understand that it can be overwhelming. You can feel disempowered and frustrated with it all. It can be very frustrating once, especially when your eyes kind of open to it all, right? Your eyes open to plant-based and being vegan and the cruelty to the animals and the impact on the environment, and suddenly you're looking, and everywhere you look, commercials on TV and walking down the street and going it's everywhere, right? And you're just like, oh, it can feel overwhelming. I think my advice would be to just take the small bites that you can, take the small bites that you can. And you don't have to change everything overnight, and you don't have to do it all. You don't have to put it's not all on you. There's a whole, world, there's a team. We are all doing what we can. So, I would say do what you can. Try not to, this is what I do. I do take a little bit of information in every day. Like with the political situation, I take a little bit in every day. But I'm careful about when it is, how much it is, all of that. And maybe I skip a day because I'm just not feeling it. And that's okay too. And I'll pick it up the next day. You know what I mean? So yeah, do what you can and make it, to me too, it's got to be like an empowering thing. Like when you make the choices that you're making, try to feel like, okay, this is good for me. This is good for the planet. This is going to make my life better. This is going to make the animals' lives better. So that's a joyful feeling, an empowering and positive feeling. So try to wrap that around all the negative and icky stuff. I don't know. That's maybe somebody else has some advice.
Marcia.
Is that me?
I don't know. Maybe I missed who had their hand up before.
Oh, I didn't have my hand up, but I feel that whole food plant-based is the only way to go. I think my sister has ALS and she's 12 years younger than me. My mom died from Alzheimer's. My grandmother died from a series of heart attacks. My other grandmother didn't know who anybody was for 20 years. I just think if you don't go whole food plant-based, you're going to die a lingering death.
That's a little food for thought for sure. Is there someone else who has a question, wants to raise their hand, say hello? So before we answer any more questions, Hope, maybe you could tell us a little bit about your health benefits or difficulties dealing with this. And I know in the in-person class, you spent just a little bit of time on the issue of some of the difficulties of trying to exert change in the world and some of your experiences of maybe part of the pain that you received wasn't worth it to go through what you went through to try to make that change. Specifically with Greenpeace and those other things.
Oh, yeah, my crazy days.
Yeah.
Yeah, was it worth it? Absolutely. I mean, I feel that everything that I have attempted to do to make this world a better place for the animals and the planet has been worth it. I hope it is, and I hope it's been enough. I know it was what I was put on this planet to do, so I do what I can. Yeah. But as far as the health, a couple of things I would say for me, being on the, I mean, I actually went raw, completely raw, for a while. My husband and I tried 100% raw plant-based. He stayed on about 5 years. I could handle about a year. It was very difficult for us. We had a hard time with it. He did extensive research into it and really came to the conclusion that, well, what's really wrong with brown rice? There's so many good cooked whole foods that it's hard to find anything wrong with them. You're just limiting yourself on a raw food diet. It's kind of, you're not getting the variety that you can with eating, cooked sweet potatoes. And there's some really wonderful foods that you're missing out on the raw diet. So we decided not to do that and go with the whole food plant-based. We really like the macro approach that is not really talked about much anymore. I don't know how you guys feel about that. It was the thing, the rage back in the 70s, 80s, the macro diet. We really like that. And sometimes we'll often make, what we call our macro plate. But I'd say that sugar is the thing that I have the hardest time with. I'm very much addicted to sugar and I try so hard. We do follow the SOS diet, no salt, no oil, no sugar, but I'm SO, the sugar part. The sugar part's very hard for me. But we don't have really salt or oil except on, when we eat out or when we have people over or things like that. But for our usual food, we eat no salt or no oil and no oil. Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, it's been a wonderful journey, and now we're so like, it's interesting how, I'll just say this wrapping up. It's interesting how now if you look at the food in the restaurants and the vegan food in the restaurants, back when we first went vegan in the 90s, most of the food in the restaurants was very healthy. I mean, that you could find whole food plant-based everywhere in vegan restaurants. It was, tofu and whole grains and all of that. And that's really shifted now because of the popularity of vegan, which is a good thing. I mean, that's, it's good and bad. I'm glad it's gone mainstream in a way. I'm glad that people are doing it for the animals and for the environment. That's awesome. But unfortunately, the health aspect has kind of suffered in the restaurant realm. With the innovation of, like, the plant-based meats and plant-based cheeses and all this very processed, heavily processed stuff, right? So it's good and bad. I'm glad that that's there. I'm glad there's transition food for people. But we just feel like we don't need that anymore. I have a hard time eating out anymore because I don't want all that shenanigan. I don't want that stuff. We don't find good, food in restaurants anymore. Anyway, whatever. I don't know what I'm saying. Just interesting stuff about the health trajectory, of the restaurants. It's unfortunate, and I wish there would be more healthy options. Nancy has her hand up.
Nancy.
Yes, I'm using my phone. I'm changing my computer, and I don't know how to get the stuff on my new computer. So I'm trying this. I don't know how it's going to work, but so
we can hear you great. So you're good.
Okay. Okay. So my idea is, I mean, I talk to people about going vegan or whole food plant-based, and it's just like their eyes glaze over. No, I can't do that, et cetera, And so my idea is to come about it from the, people think they're healthy enough and so on, but come about it from everybody's complaining about the price of food nowadays, the price of everything. Have a classes called Healthy Eating on a Budget, because the cost of a flaxseed egg is so much less than a real egg. And I mean, you can eat very, very well on a plant-based diet if you don't have meat, because the meat is what really adds to the cost of it. And so I'm just wondering if that's a way. Has anybody tried going about it that way, or you know?
Well, and I often say this, that there are so many different vegan diets. I mean,
Right, right.
there's a lot of different ways to do it. You can do the pizza and beer vegan diet. I mean, or you can,
Oreos.
yeah. I mean, it's true. There's a lot of different ways to eat vegan.
But I'm saying healthy eating.
Okay, yeah.
So that would be my, healthy eating on a budget. And you could
yeah.
eat healthy, vegan, Whole Foods plant-based. That's the trouble. Whole Foods plant-based is too much of a mouthful. I wish there were different words for the different kinds of vegan, like you were saying.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I do too. But yeah, so absolutely, bulk sections, the beans, all the amazing
The
beans
grains,
and seeds and grains. It's very cheap, when you get into nuts, they get a little more expensive, but for the most part, the bulk section is, a great source for less expensive food. You don't need to have all the, I think people think that, oh, well, I have to have the plant-based meats and the slices and
yeah.
cheese
So
and
they're
all,
just trying to substitute. So what you need
Yeah.
to do is kind of get away from all that. I mean, that's not on a budget, healthy eating.
Right. No, and that stuff's very expensive. And that
So-
stuff's expensive. And that's where people think, oh, the vegan diet's so expensive, because they're thinking of those meat substitutes and vegan
right,
substitutes.
right.
But or the cheese substitute. You don't need that stuff. You just
Well, see,
don't
one
need
of
it.
the things,
Maybe
I'm really,
you can have it every now and again, just a special weekend thing. But yeah.
because I'm really into nutrition, and I keep reading. There's a lot of places that say people need more protein, but that's, we all know that's BS. The thing that they're really deficient in our American diet is fiber. And I see once in a while, I'll see an article in a magazine or in the newspaper or something or other that, oh yeah, we need to eat more fiber, but very few. I see a lot more, we need more protein rather than we need more fiber, if you know what I'm saying. And
Yeah. Yeah. And another thing too, I think that people will often use the health thing as a reason to not be vegan. Like people will say, oh, I didn't feel good on the vegan diet or whatever it is.
Yeah.
When that happens, I like to kind of dig a little deeper and try to get, be sympathetic, and, you never want to accuse anyone of not that what they think they're experiencing. Sure, that, but usually when you dig a little deeper, it's actually that it wasn't health. It didn't have anything to do with health. It was more around, like, they had a hard time finding the food, or they weren't feeling social support, or whatever it is, so you got to kind of take that with a grain of salt if someone says that they didn't feel good on the vegan diet.
And what kind of vegan were they?
Right. And what exactly, and what were they eating? That's very true. Very true. Yeah.
So anyway, I was just wondering if anybody has tried that approach to get more people on the Whole Foods plant-based bandwagon, or at least going in that direction. I was just curious. Or do you know of anything? Or
it's a good idea
groups?
for maybe a future class, plant-based on a budget.
Yeah. No, anyway, I just was wondering if there was, like I said, a organization or some people who are out there doing that.
Well, I know there's a book called Plant-Based on a Budget.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I think it's by Tori. I want to say her name's Tori with an I. I can't remember the last name, but but there's some books out there on that. Yeah.
There's another book that's Eating Vegan on $4 a day or something, and it's several years old. I'm sure the prices have gone up a little. Dave, I know you've been waiting.
Okay.
Hello. Yeah, Sheree is, you can't see her because of the filter. She's in one of these parked cars here.
Okay.
What Nancy said, brought to mind that Sheree was telling me that our daughter, who we've been trying to introduce to this, mentioned to her she's starting to make some plant-based dishes, and one of the reasons is it's cheaper to feed the family. And so, yeah, people are noticing that. And another comment Sheree told me, she said, was that they notice that they feel better after these dinners. So
Wonderful.
I just thought I'd share that.
Thank
Great.
you.
Yeah.
Anybody else have anything to add for the good of the order here? Hope you mentioned that you don't eat out very much, but social connection is important. And I'm sure, you know, you've been living here for a while, I suspect. And, you know, we have been teaching these classes and we consider it sort of a tribe of people of similar interests. And I'm assuming that maybe your organization or what you're doing, I know you're writing books and other things. Do you find, you know, that there are enough supportive people that allow you to kind of keep on track? Or is this you're doing it just mainly on your own, plowing through each day, knowing, you know, with your passion that you're doing the right thing for the world?
Yeah, most of what I do is kind of on my own, the podcast and writing and stuff. But you know, doing the Eugene Vegan Fest has been wonderful because it's connected me to the Eugene community and getting to know people here, which is wonderful. And you know, I've kind of come to a place where most of my friends are the vegans around me that we're working together and are on my, you know, Humane Hoax team or whatever it is, which is really wonderful. I love that because I think that, you know, it's wonderful to have that like-minded connection. So yeah, no, I'm loving Eugene. I love the area and I've been here 2 years now. And yeah, I'm curious what everyone thinks of the different restaurants in the area and what people like. I really like Acorn. I think they're really good.
Mhm.
Kind of salty at times. A little generous with the salt, but they're really great. The coconut, someone just put the coconut in is good. Yeah, yeah. We're still looking for food vendors for the food court. So we've got Viva Vegetarian is committed and Be Heavenly is committed. And actually Be Heavenly has some pretty healthy food. She's you know, I don't know if anyone has eaten at her food truck. Her hours are very limited. It's like weekdays with a little in a little window. But she's got a nice menu. So I'm excited to have her coming and we hope to have more. I've got a chef Ocean who's going to be making some raw bliss balls, some raw dessert balls, and we're trying to get more food. So
Nice.
Hope the that last food truck you mentioned, what was the name of that?
Be Heavenly. She is vegetarian, vegan, mostly vegan. I think she has some, maybe some cheese or something, but you can get anything vegan on the menu. And she's right downtown. And I think she's only open like weekdays from like 11 to 3 or something like crazy like that. It's very, very limited. I think she's just getting the lunch crowd of people that work downtown. But she'll be at the Eugene Vegan Fest. So.
Okay, and the one before that was Viva Vegetarian.
Viva Vegetarian. They're also downtown. They're a little bit more shenanigan-y food. Definitely like you know, they've got the Polish sausages and a lot of the plant-based meat stuff. They do have a falafel, but falafel's deep fried, you know.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Charlie, we have one quick question for you. I noticed that Hope talked about being no oil and no salt. And Charlie, I think you told me a couple of weeks ago that we do need some salt. Was my understanding correct?
Well, I think Dr. Neil Barnard, he feels we need some salt, like 1,500 milligrams a day, but we get enough salt in our food without actually adding extra salt.
Right.
So it's
Well,
all the foods that you eat, you should probably not be getting more than about 1,500 milligrams per day. And so the problem comes in is most of the salt you get is from the processed foods. Adding a little bit of salt to your life is okay. Just kind of as long as you're not eating a lot of processed food or any processed food, pretty much. And
yeah,
cans have huge amounts of salt sometimes. Canned beans have a lot of salt. So you're checking that out. But the other issue with salt is in our country, we've used salt as a vehicle for making sure our population doesn't get iodine deficient. You need iodine for your thyroid. And so if you are not eating any salt, you need to find some source that you are getting iodine in.
yeah.
And the source that you get iodine in is sea vegetables, dulse, wakame, or nori are probably the preferred. Kelp is a source, but you need to be careful because Gregor says sometimes you can have too much salt or too much iodine. And so tablets are another option, 150
Micrograms.
micrograms.
Micrograms, yeah. And I found a liquid at Vitamin Cottage. And
Okay, so if you're getting iodine, you don't need to be adding salt to your food.
well, I'm also not eating any processed food, Charlie. I mean, my beans and rice and everything's coming from scratch.
That's okay. Then you're eating like the natives. What's the
The Yanomami people, they were all getting under 500 milligrams of sodium a day, and some were getting as low as 50 milligrams a day. And
Yeah.
they have no documented high blood pressure, nothing, you know. So
Awesome.
that's actually the natural diet is
Okay.
the hunter gatherer, and so there really isn't going to be too little. But if you're on medications, blood pressure medications and things, they can cause you to lose a little salt and stuff. So you still have to be careful and monitor. But yeah, it's usually not a problem with if you ever eat out, if you ever eat anything that comes in a box or a package, you're probably getting closer to that 1,500 milligrams Charlie's talking about. So too little is not going to be a problem for probably 99.9% of people.
Yeah. Actually, probably for the first 4 weeks that I was on it, I was following what I thought I'd heard, which was no salt, no oil, and did pretty well. I was having trouble with my beans and rice. I had to add a little bit to that, but and I think I'll continue to do that.
Yeah, a little bit is okay.
Okay, I can do a little bit. And I also looked at, or Scott, I went back and looked at that web page. It turned out that I was following an old link, and so had
Oh.
a completely different version of that homepage. For whatever reason, which was good. I thought when you showed me that, I thought I could not have missed all those things.
Oh,
So it was good to know that I'm still, my mind is still somewhat intact.
So Laura made in the chat room, it said it makes you think about wanting to find several people in your neighborhood who want to eat plant-based, rotate houses, hosts one a week or every other week. One of Christine and my kind of New Year's resolution was to kind of try to find people in our area that we can connect with. And in our mind, whether they are whole food, plant-based, vegan, whether they're standard American diet, just the social connection, even if they're standard American diet people, to get to know our neighbors a little bit better, to invite them over just to chat, not necessarily even to have food together. But it's a healthy thing after going through the pandemic and wearing masks and then fearing each other. The Surgeon General, Murthy, has a good book. It's called Together, And he makes a really good argument and motivated me to think about doing that. As far as getting together for plant-based meals, hopefully we're going to be having more potlucks in the area where people can share plant-based meals that are, totally plant-based, and they'll put their ingredients, and some of them will be SOS free and others may not, but people should be able to identify what they can eat and what they can't.
Yeah, Charlie, if we were gonna commit to our once a quarter, we'll want to do one this coming spring here, probably in March or so.
Yes.
Nancy has her hand up.
Yes. Okay. So going back to the salt issue, I have a fairly large garden and I eat mostly from my garden. And then I eat, I go to Winco and buy all the beans and grains and stuff like that. So, I get very, very low salt, and I'm just wondering if maybe I need some more. So 1,500 milligrams is what? Is that a quarter of a teaspoon, a teaspoon, or
about 3/4 of a teaspoon?
3/4.
And
Okay.
you don't have to eat that much.
Okay.
Yeah.
So would a quarter
Unless you
teaspoon
have
be
some
enough?
other underlying medical problem.
Yeah.
That's the maximum amount you should get
Okay.
with
Oh,
all
max.
your
Okay.
food.
And,
Okay,
and I mean, I hope everybody realizes there's salt in like cucumbers have some amount of salt. There's salt in everything. So
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Okay. And then when you eat processed, like some crackers or something that you bought from, the regular vendor, and of course it has salt in it. Does it also have the iodine, or is that a salt that doesn't have iodine in it? So that's another question I have.
Good question.
Yeah, you'd have to
Because
look
I
at
never list iodine on the label.
Yeah, if they don't put iodine on the label, I wouldn't assume there's any iodized salt in it. So
Okay.
it would have to put how much iodine is in it, and the recommended dietary allowance is 150 micrograms a day of iodine. So yeah, you'd have to look for it on the label.
John's saying that sea salt doesn't have iodine. So.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it may have trace amount, but since it's
the other benefit of incorporating sea vegetables into your diet for your iodine is the omega-3 benefits, particularly the medium and long chain omega-3s. And even I know that this can be difficult for some of you, because for me, the first time I tasted dulse, it was like, this is the most irritating, obnoxious food I had eaten for a long time. And yet I read the science, I listened to Gregor, I thought about it, and I had Christine sneak it into soups and salads, dulse. And eventually my taste buds changed, and now I eat it every day and crave it if I don't get it.
And this is because of the iodine?
Huh?
It's because of the iodine that you're taking?
Well, I initially did it because of the iodine and the omega-3 benefits in sea vegetables.
Well, I watched a guy who, I'm not sure exactly what his deal was, but he was talking about omega-3. And so kind of the thing I have gotten, I don't know how, because when I took the Cornell class on whole food plant-based eating, so there's in your body, the omega-3 and the omega-6 compete with one another, and in our standard American diet, all these seed oils are omega-6, and so we're getting a whole lot more omega-6 than we are omega-3. So my question is, if you cut out or eliminate as much omega-3 as you can, I mean, obviously you're going to get some because practically everything has it in it. Even whole foods have omega-3 or omega-6. But if you eliminate as much as you can of that, does that mean because the competition for those biochemical pathways aren't saturated with the omega-6 that you will get more omega-3? So that's a question I have. I'm going on
Scott,
the
Scott, you've dealt with this in, I don't know, last few classes, intermittently. I can't remember when.
Yeah, yeah, that's correct. So you get plenty of omega-3 eating whole food plant-based. What we're talking about is the subgroups of omega-3. So omega-3 you have short chain and long chain. And so the short chain omega-3s are your things like flax seeds, chia seeds, walnuts, all those kinds of things. Lots of short chain omega-3. And you're right that if you're eating a lot of omega-6, the omega-6 basically inhibits the short chain converting to the long chain omega-3. So you could be a little bit short on your long chain omega-3 if you're eating a lot of omega-6 fats, which is like your processed foods and oils, and even some healthy plant foods like nuts still have some omega-6. And so omega-6 is actually also an essential fatty acid, so we need it. We have to get it.
But it's
you're right. So
more
it's
available in
important.
plants.
Yeah. So what the thing is most people will if you cut down on the omega-6, you'll convert plenty of short chain to long chain, and that's fine. But some people aren't very good converters, and so then it's probably good to go ahead and get a little bit extra long chain, which, like Charlie's saying, is from your sea vegetables. You can get it that way, and then or you can take a supplement, but there's some controversy about whether the supplement's really helpful or not. So it's best to just get cut down the omega-6 and then eat lots of short chain omega-3, and then just for an insurance policy, try to get some long chain omega-3 as well through dulse, through other sea vegetables and things.
Well, I was watching Dr. Clapper. I think probably most of you know who he is. And he was saying that he wasn't sure whether he needed more omega-3 or not. So he took omega-3, maybe once or twice a week to make sure he got enough. That was his solution. So anyway, so is there a test for omega-3? Can you get tested for it?
Yeah, there's a finger poke test you can do, buy online, I guess, even, and it'll give you your omega-3 levels.
Oh,
so you could be tested if you want.
Oh.
I don't think insurance covers it though, so
well, probably not.
do it as a home test. Yeah.
Anyway, okay. Well, thank you.
So Hope, thank you so very much for leading this discussion session and the information you provided. We really appreciate it.
Sure.
And we feel grateful for having you come and share this with us.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. I hope it gives everyone yet another wonderful reason to go vegan. So thank you. And come to the Eugene Vegan Fest.
Yes, everybody come to the Vegan Fest and bring friends, family, non-believers. Let them see what the food tastes like, how much fun this can be.
Yes, that's the goal.
I don't know how to raise my hand. I mean, I'm
okay,
doing
Sue.
I don't know how to do this.
Okay, that's good.
How do you do it?
How do you do it?
You did it. Go ahead.
Just like this?
Yeah, just like that.
Sure.
Well, there's a little thing down at the bottom, but don't worry about it. We hear you. What? Go ahead, Sue.
I just this has been in my library. I read this book called Eat for the Planet. Are you aware of this one, Hope?
No, I don't know that one.
This is a great book.
Yeah? Who's it by?
It's Neil Zachariasen.
Oh, okay. I actually do know him. I've considered having him on my podcast. He's an academic.
Zacharias and Gene Stone together, they wrote this book, and they had the most wonderful, everything that you talked about tonight is encapsulated in this book.
Wonderful.
And he has fantastic graphs, and like you had in yours, he's got, just great diagrams in here. Which
that costs more money. I know. There were two graphs I really wanted to put in the book, and it made it so that the book was going to be like $5 more. I was like, okay, forget it. But that's great he did it.
Well, maybe we ought to put this in our lending library so people can read.
Yeah.
It's a pretty fast read. And even if you just look at the pictures of the grass, it's worth
That
reading.
actually reminds me, I wanted to see if you would like, I could donate each of my books to your lending library, but I know it's environment and it's other than nutrition, but
But we
It's
have
part of
classes like this.
lifestyle.
Yeah, we had, even before you did this environmental class, every cycle, Charlie and I would do a class about the impact on the environment, because it's, it is more, and we even had a class about the impact of food on pandemics. And so it's
Oh,
not
nice.
just health, it's also environment and pandemics. And there's just so many reasons to make this
Yeah.
choice.
Well, I'd love to donate a book of
That'd be
each
great.
to your library, so I'll bring them
Thank
to
you.
Elizabeth.
I'll
Appreciate
donate
it.
this. I'll
Good.
donate this one too.
Great.
Great.
And
Thank
we'll
you,
have a
Sue.
whole
God, what's next week?
Osteoporosis and bone health.
Oh, good.
Okay. So look forward to seeing you all back, and hope you have a really good week. And thank you all for coming and all your questions.
All right. Thanks
Thank
again, Hope.
you.
It was great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night.